Welcome to Area Effect. We're talking about Mighty Number 9. My name's Joey, and I'm super excited for this game. Greg, are you excited?
Man, I can't wait for this game to come out.
Tom, are you excited?
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Damn straight. So, before we get started on that, I'm going to give you guys a little history lesson about this guy called Keiji Inafune. Basically, back in 1987, there's this little game that came out on the Nintendo. You may have heard of it. It's called Mega Man. Keiji Inafune was the lead character designer for that game. After that, obviously Mega Man went on to become a huge franchise for Capcom. And Keiji Inafune worked on almost every single Mega Man game to come out after that. He worked on Mega Man 1 through 10, Mega Man X through X4, the Mega Man Legends series, the Mega Man Zero series, the Mega Man ZX series, Mega Man Battle Network, Mega Man Star Force. There were really only a few Mega Man games that he wasn't involved in. Most notably, Mega Man X5 through X8, which is really where that series fell off. Though Mega Man X5 is actually pretty good, but that's beside the point. Keiji Inafune has also worked on several of the Resident Evil games, the Onimusha series, Dead Rising, Dragon's Dogma, Street Fighter, Breath of Fire, Lost Planet, Asura's Wrath, Bionic Commando. This guy's kind of a big deal. He's worked on most of Capcom's successful franchises. Back in 2010, he was even the global head of production for Capcom. Basically, he oversaw every game that was in production at the time throughout the world. That was also the year that he announced that he wanted to start his life over, and he later quit Capcom and worked on a few other games, such as Soul Sacrifice for the PlayStation Vita, and a few other games. But recently, he started his own company called Concept, and with that, he's started a Kickstarter for this game called Mighty Number 9. So, what is Mighty Number 9? The Kickstarter page describes it as an all-new Japanese side-scrolling action game that takes the best aspects of the 8-bit and 16-bit era classics you know and love and transforms them with modern tech, fresh mechanics, and fan input into something fresh and amazing. You play as Beck, the ninth in a line of powerful robots, and the only one not infected by a mysterious computer virus that has caused mechanized creatures the world over to go berserk. You will run, jump, blast, and transform your way through 6 stages or more. You can tackle in any order you choose, using weapons and abilities stolen from your enemies to take down your fellow Mighty Number robots and confront the final evil that threatens the planet. I don't know about you, but that sounds a lot like a Mega Man.
Mega Man.
In fact, it even looks like a Mega Man game.
Yeah.
Yeah, even his style is very Mega Man. It's very classic jump and shoot man.
Yep, jump and shoot man. It may as well be the spiritual successor to Mega Man. I mean, that's what a lot of people are calling it.
Yeah.
So, I guess really the first question is, why did Inafune leave Capcom to make his own Mega Man game?
Better question is, why didn't he do it much, much sooner? To be honest.
Yeah.
Because this looks like it's in a lot of ways much more free, much less restricted by
Capcom.
What a big studio would want. Yeah. I'm just glad he's finally able to make games again. We don't need another Mega Man Legends 3 cancellation. You know, that level of disappointment is just fucked up.
I think what could have been also another thing that could have happened, it could have ended up being like Resident Evil 6, where they try to do too many things and try to appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah.
And, you know, it waters down what the game really is. I mean, these companies want to get a wider audience, but at the same time, a lot of these games come from, you know, the core people. I mean, a lot of their money comes from the core people. And when you just leave them in the dust to try to appeal to everybody, you end up scaring off all the people that made that game big, and the people that are getting into it now, it's like, it's okay, but it's not something, you know.
I mean, that almost sounds
really
like
appeals to me.
That almost sounds like what Capcom wound up doing with Devil May Cry, Not to go off on a tangent about that series, but that's one where it almost seemed like they were trying too hard to appeal to new people, and they wound up, making a lot of people happy, but betraying a lot of other fans. And the Mega Man series has had a troubled history, to say the least. I mean, there have been a lot of fantastic games in the series, a lot of very repetitive and almost, just yearly releases that you could skip over and not miss anything. But I mean, overall, you've got this core fan base that loves it, But I mean, after Inafune left Capcom, there were 4 Mega Man games that were canceled. I think there's only one of them that he wasn't actually involved in. One of the first ones that was being worked on was called Maverick Hunter, and it was a very Metroid Prime-ish looking first-person shooter that was going to have an alternate universe kind of Mega Man X. And it
did look like Metroid Prime quite a bit.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it looks really cool though, and there's some really sick gameplay footage out there that they released. And I mean, the game actually looked like it had some decent time in development. But the thing got canned in 2010, and no word's been, there hasn't been any word of if they're going to do anything with it again. They're probably not, which is sad because their plans for that game sounded really sick. They talked about making a trilogy of them, and Zero would wind up becoming your enemy later on. And I mean, it just, the stuff they had planned sounded really, really elaborate and really good. And then Mega Man Legends 3 really is the biggest disappointment. I mean, that was a series that never really seemed to take off. I guess it just never sold as well, and not enough people played it really, like the first 2 games, and then the Misadventures of Tronbon. Which was amazing. Most people have never even heard of that one.
I had all 3.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely...
really, really fun back in the day, but yeah, definitely niche.
It definitely had a cult following for sure, but I mean, their production for Mega Man Legends 3 was crazy. Inafune himself was heavily involved in that one, and they had this whole campaign to have the fans input on the game. And they had this website where fans would log in, and they would participate in contests and stuff like that to create characters and dialogue and stuff like that for the game. And it was canceled. It wound up falling in game development limbo for a while. Nintendo, they wanted to, it was going to be on the 3DS, and the plan was to release the prototype for the game in the Nintendo eShop during the launch of the 3DS. And then the sales of the prototype, or the reception of the prototype, would dictate whether or not the game would go on to be made at all. And then the prototype got canceled, and then the whole game got canceled later on in July of 2011. And the response was that they said it didn't feel like it met the required criteria, which sounds like it wasn't very fun, maybe, or I don't know. But coincidentally, it was canceled. It fell through and was canceled after Inafune left Capcom. Pretty similar to Maverick Hunter. Mega Man Online was going to be a sort of MMO kind of thing that fell into development limbo in 2012, and then was officially announced as being canceled in 2013.
What else was there? There was a Mega Man Universe, right?
Yeah, Mega Man Universe is kind of a sad tale, actually. That one, Inafune released a video personally talking about it and how excited he was for it. And that was going to be a game where players could customize levels. They could make levels and share levels and customize their characters and stuff like that. And it sounded almost like a Little Big Planet style Mega Man game.
It took me a minute. I actually remember that now. It's actually coming back to me.
It had the Ghost and Goblins guy in it too. And
yeah. Like Ryu from Street Fighter was in one of the previews for it.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you could actually make those characters in the game, but what wound up happening...
It's so sad now.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because fans apparently really hated the art design for the game, which admittedly I don't really like the way it was looking either. Fans didn't like the way the game looked. It had this cartoon, this kind of cartoony art style that people didn't like. and it seemed like the game kind of went back, and they said they were going to redo it, and then some earthquakes happened around that time, and a lot of people are speculating that those had a lot to do with the halt in the development, which it probably did. Apparently that hurt a lot of video games around that time. Anyway, point is there is a lot of stuff going on that wound up getting in the way, and Capcom just canceled Mega Man Universe as well. But coincidentally, all these games were canceled after Inafune left, which I don't know if that's Capcom not having enough interest, or not having the right person in charge of those projects, or I don't know.
That's kind of how I feel. I feel like they lost interest, and the more that people were asking for it, they started to lose respect for the people that were asking for it, which is why you ended up with like no Mega Man in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. We're going to throw Mega Man in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but it's going to be the fat Mega Man on the front that no one cares about.
Well, that version of Mega Man, I mean, I feel like that was almost a practical joke. Like, I mean, it clearly was, they were trying to be funny with that character, but it's almost appropriate that that's the Mega Man they used, because he's like this overweight, washed up, older dude, and it just, like, that's kind of what Mega Man has become. I mean, looking at the more recent Mega Man games, I mean, Mega Man 9 and 10 were great, but like the most recent games in the X series were not. X7 in particular, that game was fucking terrible. I know the games on the handhelds have been pretty good. The reception for the Mega Man ZX series and the Battle Network and Star Force is actually pretty good. People seem to really like those. But they're handheld games. If you look at the difference between the kind of Mega Man games we have gotten recently compared to what we used to get, like, for example, look at the PlayStation. The PlayStation had a lot of good Mega Man games. It had Mega Man 8, Mega Man X4, X5, X6, and
Legends 1 and 2.
Mega Man Legends 1 and 2. Tronbon was on PS1 as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then on PS2 you had the compilation games, and you had Maverick Hunter X, which is actually pretty good. And you had X7 and X8. We don't talk about X7. But anyway, the point is that, like, you had all these games were big flagship games on the PlayStation, on a home console, and they turned that series into something that is just on handhelds, which handhelds are a lot more popular over in Japan, so this may be sort of a moot point for us to talk about, but over here, most of the people that play DS are kids. So it kind of went from the series where everybody could play it. It was a home console, and there was a lot of them on the console. It was a very prominent series, to just something that mostly kids play. And I don't know if that was really intentional, or if it's an issue with budgets or something, or I feel like maybe Capcom didn't think that Mega Man would sell as well as other console games, or as well as they would need a big console game to sell, like your Resident Evils or something, your Dead Rising or something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they're looking at that Kickstarter going, man, I sure wish that we would have made Mega Man, because that's like almost $2 million that we're not getting.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, how much does that really matter to Capcom?
I don't know.
I guess the dollar amount doesn't sound like a lot to Capcom, because they sold 5 million copies of Resident Evil 6 and considered it a commercial failure, because, to my understanding, the budget for that game was so high that they needed to sell more copies in order to really profit off of it, which is just insane. Because,
I was going to say that's their fault, not the game's fault.
Yeah,
it's not the consumers. It's not GameStop, cutting into their sales with used sales. It's because they don't know how to budget.
Well, I don't feel like a Mega Man game would sell that many copies. I don't think Mighty Number 9 will either. But I think Mighty Number 9 will be very successful, because
well, that's the thing. Like, what does this mean now for fans of Mega Man when it comes to new Mega Man iterations? Is it gonna be kind of immoral to support a Capcom released Mega Man game after the fact?
Keiji Inafune left Capcom and is taking the essence of Mega Man and making it in this game, and I think he's going to take a lot of Capcom's fans with him. A big question that's on my mind right now is what is next after this game? Is he going to continue and make Mighty Number 9 a huge franchise? Is he going to make other games is he going to make other games that are similar, or is he going to start making his own versions of other franchises that he worked on, like Onimusha? I personally would love to see him do things like that.
I would love to do Onimusha.
I would absolutely freak out about any word of something like that.
Why don't they change what they view success to be? Because, like we said, 5 million and it's a failure, while another studio sells way under, way less, and it's this huge success. When are they going to decide that maybe they need to change the way that they view success? It's not, what's the most expensive, what's the biggest, the prettiest thing that they can trot out. Take a smaller team that's hungry, that wants to make these games, that is passionate about what they're doing, and make a game that they're not worried about what the Metacritic score is going to be. They're not worried about how much money it's going to be. They're worried about how good the game is going to be. It can be pretty and all that. I mean, a shiny turd is still a turd. As much fun as I have with Resident Evil 6's Mercenary mode, the game in general, not a good game. Not a good game at all. It doesn't fit the series. It's bloated. It's trying to do too much. The game is too much. Capcom is thinking too much. Take a step back and realize, hey, there's other companies out there that are making a profit, a good profit. No, it's not going to be Call of Duty numbers. Not everything needs to make Call of Duty numbers. Sometimes you just need to make numbers.
I think that what Inafune is doing with this Kickstarter is highlighting a larger problem with the industry right now. And I think it's really bringing to light how dominant indie games are going to be going into this next generation. The PS4 seems to really be pushing for indie games. Sony is pushing it hard because that's what people want. Fans seem to want this, and indie developers seem to make good money. They make good profits, and they make really great games with small studios and small budgets, and they don't need producers and distributors anymore. Companies like Capcom, they're expecting Resident Evil to hit Call of Duty numbers, but you can't do that without watering down the game. Resident Evil was always a niche. It managed to sell huge numbers because it was great, but they're trying to make it appeal to a broader audience than it already had, and so far it doesn't appear to be working. So what we need, I think fans would love to see the team that made the original Resident Evil series do like an indie version of that. I would like to play that. You know what I mean? Like a smaller scale version that plays like the older games. That would be fun. I think people would be into that.
Yeah. I would love it if they came out with a new, you remember Zero and the remake? I would love it if they went back to even that.
Yeah, Resident Evil Zero was fantastic.
Because the remake and Zero were terrifying games. And now they're saying that they're going to go back and start making Resident Evil, it's going back to scary. They're going back to scary because they saw that Resident Evil 6, it didn't make the numbers. Even though it made insane numbers, I don't see how it didn't make the number. Well, I know why. It's because their budget. They spent more money than they made. And they just need
They've been watching too many Die Hard movies and Uwe Boll stuff, They've been watching their own movies, basically. And being like, oh, those did somewhat successfully or made some money, and thinking that it equates to the same formula of gameplay that they had before. But it's very clear you can't fuck with something like Resident Evil too much before it's not Resident Evil anymore.
I mean, it hasn't
then
been
at that
Resident Evil
point-
for 2.5 games, you know?
Yeah.
I say 2.5 because although 4
Yeah,
was this
Resident
huge
Evil 4.
departure, 4 still maintained the roots of a horror game in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Resident Evil
it was
Revelations
more-
is definitely a step in the right direction, though.
It is. It absolutely is. You're right. So I mean, you know, that series, we could do a podcast on that series by itself. We really could, but we've practically done it twice already. But so I mean, I guess the point I wanted to get to was that what Inafune is doing right now, I feel like he's going to usher in this new wave of indie games. And I mean, indie games are already in huge force. It's not like he's the first one to do this, but he is the biggest one to do this so far.
Yeah.
Like this guy, he's not just some dude that made a great game. He is Capcom. He is almost 100% of the good Capcom games. The only Capcom series I can even think of that he's not involved in is Devil May Cry. Other than that, this dude is the essence of Capcom. And he just left, made his own company, started a Kickstarter, and people are eating it up. And I feel like he's going to usher in this wave of indie games that are going to dominate. And I feel like this next generation, we're going to be playing indie games left and right. And maybe indie games are going to be a little bit bigger than what we've seen so far. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because I feel like this dude in particular, he gets video games. He understands what the fans want, and he understands how to make a game good and successful.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to do it no matter who he's working for. And now he's working for himself. And I think that a lot of people are going to follow in his footsteps.
And you know what? I think that a lot of people can learn from this situation. I mean,
Definitely.
here's a game, Mega Man, that fans have been asking for, begging for years. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I don't work at Capcom, for whatever reason, they haven't put it out. And he knows people have wanted Mega Man. I'm sure he wanted Mega Man. He's, founding fathers of Mega Man. So to have him come out and say, you know what? It's not really Mega Man, but it's Mega Man-esque. It has the look of Mega Man. It's got the feel of Mega Man. Here's something like Mega Man. Really, really like Mega Man. I mean, their main characters are called Beck and Call. So much like rock and roll, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Call looks a lot like Roll. It's funny. But, it tells the fans that, hey, if these people go out and make the game, they will, if you're passionate about it, that someone will make this game for you. And it tells the developers, hey, if we're not going to do it, somebody else might, and they're going to end up getting the 2 mil instead of us,
Yeah.
And he's showing everybody that, hey, I didn't have 10 million Mighty Number 9 commercials popping up every time you watch a YouTube video, or down in the corner, or on TV, or a commercial for the Super Bowl. By all intents and purposes, no one should have really heard about this, but he made a Kickstarter, and between his name, it's mostly his name on it, but Destructoid put it out, IGN put it out, Game Trailers put it out, and now everyone hears about it, and now all these people are rushing to go put money on this game. And it shows them like, hey, you don't need these huge budgets to frickin' let people know your game's coming out.
Yeah.
You have the
time
internet. The internet exists now.
What do you think this guy's advertising budget was? Because it doesn't look like it's much. It looks like
Yeah, it was a very minimalistic trailer and stuff.
it looks like everybody's advertising for him.
Yeah.
Like you said, IGN, Game Trailers, Destructoid, YouTube in general, everybody's talking about this.
I was going to say
And,
word of mouth is
like-
a mug, so
like, you know, Resident Evil's advertising budget was massive. And did it pay off? I don't really think so. I think people would have, if they just announced, yeah, so we're doing Resident Evil 6, and just put out all their stuff on the internet and didn't do anything else, everybody would have known about it, and everybody that bought it probably still would have bought it, and they would have saved all that money on advertising. It almost seems like they should be focusing more on actually just making the damn game.
See, that's the thing. I don't think Capcom has been thinking about Mega Man in that, to that capacity for a long time. Like they didn't really treat him or the series like what it was in reality. What it was in reality is something that kind of pulled them to the forefront of video gaming. Like back in the NES days, it was, what games were you saving up for? What games did you really look forward to in Nintendo Power and stuff? For me and my brothers, it was fucking Mega Man. It was Mega Man and whatever else was coming out from Capcom because of Mega Man, basically, and they've become this titan, this almost like unstoppable behemoth of business power, and it's kind of unhealthy. It's taken away from the fact that they used to make kick-ass games, and that's all anybody really cared about, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're turning into more of a business than they are a game development company,
Mhm.
that's because they forgot where they came from, is basically what this boils down to.
Yeah.
It's, here's Mega Man, and because it's not as big as something else, they're like, well, we can hold off on this because it's a side scroller, it's 2D, whatever, and it's going to be like an indie game, so it's not going to make Call of Duty numbers. It's like, but now would be the best time to come out with it, because indie games are getting big, retro games are big. I mean, everything's going to this old school of gaming. It's like
This is what
all
people
the
want.
now
Yeah.
is the perfect time to come out with Mega Man, because now indie is the big thing, and all these indie games are bringing back retro games, the side scrollers, and the jump, the one button games of just jumping on people or jumping and shooting. And Mega Man is one of the titans, one of the forefathers of that type of gameplay. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to make another Resident Evil, make something pretty.
I have a question for you guys. Let's say this game comes out, everybody loves it, and then Capcom comes out with another Mega Man game not too long after that. Do you think fans are going to play the Mega Man game? Or do you think people are just going to be loyal to Inafune?
Where our fan allegiance is gonna fall. I think the perfect example of this, the new Smash Brothers has Mega Man, old school 8-bit style, classic Mega Man, kind of iconic of Inafune's whole career, leading up to where he is now. But is that gonna be supportive of? Obviously, it probably will be supportive of Capcom, or is it really just going to be supporting Nintendo? That's the question. I think it would be awesome to see Inafune Games make a big return to its roots, Nintendo specifically. If he just started making a whole series with this, and it was coming out on the Nintendo console, it'd be such a flashback for a lot of people,
That is a very good point. And it would be really, really cool, because since Platinum Games, which used to be Clover Studio, well, a lot of people from Clover Studios are in Platinum Games, and as we all know, Capcom shut down Clover Studios, but Platinum Games is making a bunch of games for Nintendo now, and it'd be really cool if Inafune started making games for Nintendo. So you've got two studios that used to be Capcom coming over and making all these really old school Capcom-y feel games, your Bayonettas, your Wonderful 101s, and now your Mighty Number 9, all on Nintendo Wii U. That would really help Nintendo's sales to have Platinum and Inafune making games specifically for them. So
Oh, yeah.
there you go, Nintendo. If you can throw that money down, start chucking money at those two companies. Start bringing in
And
some...
it's not even like a dangerous. It wouldn't even be like a dangerous investment. That's like taking.
No, it
that's
wouldn't.
Trading an all-star player, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Concept is, it's not just Inafune and Concept, it's other industry veterans that he worked with at Capcom. And
Yeah.
they're all talented people that worked on really big games, most of them Mega Man games. But, you know, I feel like this is a good time for video games, to be honest. I feel like this is only good for the fans. This cannot be bad for fans in any way, because
Totally.
you know what? Even if we have Mega Man games and Mighty Number 9 games coming out right next to each other, we're getting what we wanted. What we
got
wanted is
best
going to
of
be
both.
in one of those two things.
You've got the best of both right there, if
Yeah.
that happens.
You do. You really do. And I can't complain about it. I think everybody should support this. I think everybody should back this. If you have any interest in Mega Man at all, or you just want to see a resurgence in quality games with, you know, and you want to back a strong developer, give Concept your money. Back Mighty Number 9. I implore you. This
Please,
game, I think,
guys.
is going to be great. And you know what? Even if it didn't wind up being what we want it to be, I think the fact that this game is coming out is a very, very good thing for our industry, and I support any other developer or any other producer that wants to go out there and do this. I think more people should follow in Inafune's footsteps.
Definitely.
Most
Break
definitely.
free from the big industry and carve some new paths. You know, doesn't
makes-
have
You
to
know,
be.
Make some
what you're
fantastic
passionate about.
games and do what they love. We'll have the link in the description here. In the annotation, you can just go ahead and click that and get to the Kickstarter page. Watch Inafune's video. It's great. Back Mighty Number 9. Other than that, thank you guys so much for listening. Any last words, Tom?
Do it, Nintendo. You know you want to.
Greg, any last words?
Jump and shoot, man!
All right, guys, that's it. Area of Effect signing out.